This is episode 1155.
I mentioned all those employer relationships we have, 35 OEM partners, 6,000 kind of employer partnerships that are hiring our graduates. We have a pretty good idea of where the needs are, what the demand picture looks like, what the TAM, if you will, looks like. And over the next decade plus, even if we are perfectly successful in everything we do for the next 5 years, we still won't have made a dent in the supply-demand problem in this country. So we're just doing as much as we possibly can and focusing on those skills that are most in demand across the country is where we're focused. But we have a pretty good idea. We've kind of developed a location model over the last 10 years or so that gives us very good insight into exactly which cities. We already know, for example, the next 10 cities we're going to launch into on the UTI side. We same exact thing on the healthcare. We know where we're going to go because of how robust our data sets are.
Before we jump into introductions, I want to frame why this conversation matters right now. We spent a lot of time talking about growth, AI, and transformation in the abstract, but far less time examining how finance leaders actually decide what deserves capital, patience, and protection. Today's discussion gets into that tension head on. What happens when innovation can't be measured by traditional ROI? How does a CFO ask the one question that changes the room without shutting the room down? What does disciplined finance leadership look like inside a mission-driven organization scaling for long-term impact? Our talk with Bruce Schuman of Universal Technical Institute begins after this. Hello, CFO Bruce Schuman is with us. Bruce brings a career shaped by scale, complexity, and hands-on operational finance leadership. He spent more than 2 decades at Intel, where he held senior roles across M&A, supply chain, IT, and enterprise P&L leadership. He later stepped into CFO roles at tech-enabled businesses, including Vacasa and Kiavi, navigating growth, capital markets, and transformation, of course. Today, as CFO of Universal Technical Institute, Bruce is applying that background to a mission-driven organization focused on workforce development, scale, and long-term impact. Bruce, welcome.
Thank you, Jack. Great to be here.
So, Bruce, I of course, saw Intel on the resume, and we're always fascinated by this company. So I look forward to popping this question to you, which is, hey, take a look back. And again, 2 decades. Take a look back and tell us a little bit about your development and those experiences you feel really sharpened your finance acumen to become a leader. What comes to mind?
Yeah, well, thanks, Jack. Yeah, like you said, 2 decades plus, 27 years, that's a long time to stay at one company. You might think, why in the world would I, stay so long? I really felt like it was a privilege to really grow up at a place like Intel. We really, I think, in my mind, kind of set the gold standard, the company at the time, on what leadership development looked like, what employee development looked like, things like the job rotation program, where you were always being challenged. You're always learning something different. Every 18 months or 2 years, you're moving into a new role. I really got a firsthand look at, in my mind, what great business partnership looked like, great influence. People, like the legendary CFO Andy Bryant, a lot of us learned under him what real influence looks like, what real business partnership looked like. I think one of the things that stands apart for me that really shaped my leadership style and how I think about leadership today is really the mentorship. I had some amazing mentors who came along beside me and treated leadership development. I'll never forget one of my most impactful mentors said, look, everything you've heard about kind of leadership development up to this point as sort of a 10-step program and a book you're going to go read, and we'll come back and talk about it later. She said, forget about all that. we're going to take a different route, and it's going to be a very personal, mentorship, where I'm going to take personal insight into you. I will personally develop, build into you. And she said, if you're willing to share with me the one thing that really is holding you back, that you're kind of struggling with, and it's preventing you from getting to the next level in your career, if you trust me with that one thing, if you're willing to share that one thing, I will personally commit to helping you get better in that one thing. And that one thing over the years turned into many one things, right? Kind of 6 months at a time, a year at a time. I'd really work on that one thing that was kind of preventing me from being the best, most impactful leader that I could be. And it kind of blew my mind. It kind of changed the way I think about mentorship. It's a very personal, and there's a lot of investment that has to happen, a lot of personal, investment into an employee, into a person, from someone like that happened to be a boss who also turned into a mentor for many years. So just the whole vision of what mentorship was like really changed kind of my finance leadership perspective. The other thing that comes to mind for me, Jack, was, learning. I mentioned Andy Bryant, which I consider one of the best CFOs ever. You've probably heard about him from talking to other people that kind of lived at Intel during that time, but he was a master at sort of asking the one question that mattered in a meeting, right? I'll never forget, I was kind of a first line controller, presenting to him. I was so proud of something I'd worked on for months. It was this product change that we were proposing. And he, kind of waited patiently throughout the whole meeting, listened to our proposal. He asked one question at the end of that time that was basically thinking about a customer impact perspective that nobody had thought about. I missed it. My entire team had missed it. The product team had missed it. And it completely changed the entire focus of what we were doing. And we ended up with a 10 times better product impact, proposal at the end of the day, because of the one question that he asked that literally changed the entire conversation. So I really focus even today and sort of really being thoughtful about the questions I ask in meetings, where I push. Am I putting the difficult thing on the table that maybe no one else is wanting to talk about? Andy was really good at that, and it really helped shape how I try to lead and how I try to help impact organizations. And it was an amazing time to kind of grow up, if you will, at a company like that. So that's why I stayed, so many years there, frankly.
That's a great story for us. It's funny because so many of our discussions, meetings often get a bad rap, like they take up too much time. They're not constructive. We need less meetings. And yet your story, which you just shared, and I think at Intel, these meetings, many of our guests have, not unlike you, discussed a specific meeting with us where an executive revealed to the finance team how Andy viewed those meetings as a way to educate and trigger some change, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, we actually had a name for it at Intel. We called it Constructive Confrontation, and it was sort of this way of and really from the earliest point in your career, as you grow up through the ladder of your career and influence, it was never be afraid to ask that really tough question and push back on something that needs to be pushed back on, but do it in a constructive way. And so when that's modeled for you every single day over many years, you become better at it. So that whole idea of constructive confrontation, putting the difficult thing on the table that maybe no one's wanting to talk about, but you're doing it for the good of the organization. You're doing it to move people forward, not to criticize or tell someone that's a stupid idea. It's just, hey, have you thought about this? Or I think you're missing something, or I think there's a difficult thing we're avoiding talking about. That constructive confrontation concept has really stuck with me through the years. And I try to use it, even in my role today.
I'm wondering what part of your Intel experience translated least directly to your first, let's say, CFO seat outside that environment.
I think maybe just the raw technology piece. I mean, you have to get so deep in sort of like living with your engineering teams every single day, learning the intricacies of silicon development and software development. That particular piece of sort of how deep you have to get in the business at Intel, that didn't apply necessarily in my next CFO role, but everything else did, right? The influence, the impact. Even as I built out an FP&A team, like what I'm looking for in an FP&A team, these are, I saw FP&A at Intel as these are game changer people. These are people who are not just reporting the score of the game to you, but they're people on the field literally changing the outcome of the game. That was very applicable. So that same, how I'm building a finance team to influence and impact, that was very relevant to my next CFO roles. Not so much the intricacies of what we dealt with on the technology front every single day.
Can you, I'm wondering if you can describe perhaps an early CFO decision. You don't have to be too specific with us. And again, this is your third CFO appointment, so you've been in the seat for some time. Can you describe an early CFO decision where the difference became unmistakable in terms of your decision making in a sort of smaller firm versus the Intel environment?
So part of it is a little bit of what I was going to share in my strategic moment. So maybe I'll share a little bit about that in a couple minutes, so I don't kind of move too much into that section. But I do have something I'd love to share in a few minutes.
Did you? It seems to me you could have left Intel sooner. All right. So I'm sure we can all think of some reasons why Bruce stayed at Intel.
Yeah.
At the same time, the recruiters were contacting you all along the way, after 20, more than 20 years.
27 years. Yeah, it's crazy.
So help us better understand, and when it was time to leave, help us understand what were the circumstances? What is it that finally you said, okay, this is the CFO appointment that makes sense?
Yeah, well, so the reason I stayed, Jack, honestly, I kind of getting back to that earlier conversation on just the mentorship and the leadership development. When you are constantly getting challenged and pushed into new roles where you feel like you can still have an impact, and every role you take has a higher and higher level of impact for the company, frankly, that's really exciting. I mean, for a finance professional, that's kind of what it's all about. And I felt like I kept getting those opportunities and getting those roles at Intel. And I had these amazing mentors. I think you probably talked to several of them. Some of our most impactful, visionary leaders were women at Intel. For just as an aside, I owe a lot of my career to really amazing women. And some of these leaders just continue to build into me. And I owe a lot of my career to sort of that mentorship. And frankly, it's made me want to be a better mentor to people today because of how I was mentored. And really, that's why I stayed, right? That impact I was able to have, I was constantly challenged. I felt like I was constantly growing, and I didn't feel the need to leave. And finally, 27 years is a long time. I finally was getting a little tired of, I wanted to go, be in the CFO chair. I waited for the right moment to do it. And that's, it was just a personal decision. 27 years was long enough. That's really long to stay at one company, admittedly, but I just stayed there because of that mentorship and that leadership development.
Well, thank you, Bruce. We probably have a few more career-related questions a little later for you, but right now, let's find out about Universal Technical Institute.
Yeah.
And I asked you up front, is this UTI? And apparently you do use the initials, but the broad name as well is out there. Yeah. Tell us something about this company. What's it about?
Well, so Universal Technical Institute, we are the nation's largest workforce solutions provider in the skilled trades. So the classic skilled trades, like auto, diesel, transportation, energy, robotics, automation, welding, HVAC, those types of skilled trades, all the way through the other end of the spectrum in the healthcare arena. So all the professions that surround the doctor or the professions that surround the dentist, that entire gamut of skilled trades. We are the nation's largest education provider of those skilled trades jobs. We provide jobs for we train students for in-demand jobs in the U.S. The real differentiators for us is how industry aligned we are. We have about 35 OEM partners across the U.S. that we're really tailoring curriculum for those OEM partners. We have about 6,000 employer partners. These are the people that are hiring our graduates, and we're very focused on meeting their needs. And so how industry aligned we are is a differentiator for us. The other differentiator is frankly student outcomes. We're very proud of, we have 70% graduation rates. We have about 85% placement rates. It's an amazing time in this country to be in this sector. The U.S. desperately needs more skilled trades workers. The supply demand gap, if you will, has been very large for decades, the last probably 2 decades at least. It's only getting worse. If you think about some of the onshoring trends happening, we need more skilled workers than we are producing in this country. So Universal Technical is sort of stepping into that gap and really providing those skilled trades workers that frankly our country desperately needs. There's about 4 to 5 jobs for every single one of our graduates on the skilled trade side. And on the healthcare side, there's about 8 to 10 jobs for every one of our graduates today. So there's an incredible need. Frankly, we alone can't meet the need, and the supply demand gap is so large, but we're playing a big part in that. It's a really exciting place to be.
We see and I use the phrase as well, it's on the site, mission-driven organization. Yeah. Help us understand better what that means for finance, really. Are there trade-offs here? There
are trade-offs, but really the same. So first of all, I have a finance team who's really excited about the mission of the company. I think you have to start there. If people are really motivated and excited about the role that we're playing, in this case, in this country, you have people who are really excited about what the company's doing. That makes it really exciting to be a part of what finance is doing to help enable our mission, which is to provide as many opportunities as possible for an education in the skilled trades. There's a lot of angst right now on how AI is going to disrupt, the job prospects in the country. There's a lot of, angst on, people coming out of high school. Is a 4-year college degree still worth it anymore? Like the amount of debt you have to take on. And, we're providing a really viable alternative for people. So I have a finance team who's very excited about the role that we play, and they're, excited then about helping the company enable that, make that a reality for our students.
So I believe you joined, we're coming up on your 1-year anniversary. What's changed that first year in terms of resource allocation? Is there something people can point to, or?
A pretty big change. So we're embarking, at the company, we had this first phase of we called the North Star strategy. So it was really getting the company ready. We did a pretty big acquisition. We bought a company called Concord Career Colleges, where we have 2 divisions. We have the classic UTI, Universal Technical Institute. That's kind of the skilled trade side. We've been around for 60 years. We just celebrated our 60-year anniversary and got to ring the bell on the stock exchange, which was fun. And then we bought Concord, which really brought us into the healthcare skilled trades arena. The first part of the North Star strategy was really to get that acquisition fully integrated well, get all the revenue synergies we needed to, et cetera. The next phase of the North Star strategy, kind of the next 5 years, Jack, that's what we're kind of in year 2 of that strategy. And it is very significant capital deployment. We've never invested this much capital. We have said publicly we're going to be building anywhere from 2 to 5 campuses a year for the next 5 years because of how great that supply-demand gap is for the skilled trades we offer. So a very significant shift in capital allocation, the amount of money we're investing, which really then puts finance front and center to make sure we are allocating that properly. So we have a lot of exciting work ahead.
So help us understand then, what are the top of mind metrics for you? What are you looking at regularly to understand how the company's performing?
Absolutely. So one of the things first of all, anything we do and how fast we grow, one of the regulators on that is to make sure that the student outcomes I talked about don't suffer. Those are kind of like the guiding light for us. We'll never sacrifice student outcomes. So there could be a point where we actually grow too fast and we let student outcomes suffer. We're not going to do that. So, but as we grow, as we focus on these campuses, we're spending time on making sure we have the right locations identified across the country. Are we picking cities that are going to have the fastest ramp rate and give us the best return as we try to meet student needs in each of these cities we're growing into? So location identification, making sure, frankly, Jack, we're offering the right program mix. Things like aviation, HVAC, and welding, those skills are growing much faster than even the traditional kind of auto diesel, transportation side on UTI. So making sure we have the right program mix that's going to give us the best outcome. Like I said, making sure the ramp rates are sufficient in each of the new campuses. Frankly, making sure we're targeting the right students, the people who are going to not only, sign the contract to join, but actually show up for school. A lot of our kids are right out of high school, on the UTI side. So really working with them to make sure they kind of follow through in that commitment and see it all the way through. Space utilization, I think historically, when a company's been around for 60 years, you kind of get into this rhythm of, there's one way you do things. And our CEO, and I've been helping him over the last couple of years, and our COO, we're really shaking up what used to be an optimized campus. Basically maybe you'd have half the campus just dedicated to auto diesel. Now we're thinking much more aggressively about every single square foot. Are we getting the right EBITDA dollars per square foot utilization out of our campuses? We're spending a lot of time on that. So those are some of the metrics we look at.
I keep on enrollment cycles. Your lines of sight into those cycles, and what data? How do you extend your lines of sight there?
Well, there's things like the Bureau of Labor Statistics, of course. We look at a lot of government data. We look at, I mentioned all those employer relationships we have, 35 OEM partners, 6,000 kind of employer partnerships that are hiring our graduates. Right. We have a pretty good idea of where the needs are, what the demand picture looks like, what the TAM, if you will, looks like. And over the next decade plus, even if we are perfectly successful in everything we do for the next 5 years, we still won't have made a dent in the supply-demand problem in this country. So we're just doing as much as we possibly can and focusing on those skills that are most in demand across the country is where we're focused. But we have a pretty good idea. We've kind of developed a location model over the last 10 years or so that gives us very good insight into exactly which cities. We already know, for example, the next 10 cities we're going to launch into on the UTI side. We same exact thing on the healthcare. We know where we're going to go because of how robust our data sets are. So we have a pretty good idea of where the demand is.
Well, we want to, of course, touch on AI with you, and it just seems like a space that's going to be impacted by AI, hiring and your training, everything we read. There's always these AI stories and their impact on business begin with, of course, the workforce and the possibility of layoffs and what have you. So this business, one would expect to be, perhaps vulnerable. But tell us, share some thoughts on AI and why it perhaps is not as vulnerable as we might assess.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing for us. If you think about the skills that we train our students for, my CEO and we're always very careful to say that we're AI proof because we don't think of it that way. We think of these jobs are very hard to have disruption from AI. Like AI is not going to be taking your blood anytime soon. AI is not going to be fixing your car anytime soon or fixing a jet engine anytime soon. Maybe at some point with the way robotics are going, but not for a very long time. So the jobs that we're creating for people, the opportunities, the skills that we're training people for, those skills are very hard to be disrupted by AI. So that's a good thing for our student base. It gives them a very stable kind of entry into the workforce where other jobs are more susceptible to AI disruption. However, in our curriculum, we integrate AI into our curriculum very heavily. A lot of the diagnostic tools, for example, on the healthcare side, radiology technician, for example, doing a write-up, a report on a radiology exam, that is very AI driven. So we train our students on how to leverage AI, for example, in diagnostic tools. So it's very much a part of our curriculum. How we're trying to use AI in the business, we're starting on really integrating much more AI into our lead generation, our lead conversion. We're finding some of our targeting models are getting just exponentially better, even versus a year ago, in how we're targeting students, really exactly the right student for us, who again is going to follow it all the way through and actually complete their education. So on the lead generation, lead conversion side is where we're really seeing a lot of success, leveraging AI for the business.
So, but within finance, I guess, where are you actively using AI inside the finance function?
So I would say right now, most of the AI investments we've made have been more on the accounting side. So using kind of your traditional, Flowcast, Alteryx, some of the workflow automation, reconciliation tools. We're finding a lot of success in AI. The goal for this year, Jack, and I'll be transparent with you, maybe other companies are much further down the path than we are, but we have two divisions and we're on two different ERP systems. So it's really, we really want to get to a place where we have kind of an AI-driven, driver-based forecasting model for the company. We're not quite there yet because of those two ERP systems. We had to make some pretty critical foundational data investments first, having a really strong data foundation, good data governance, having a data lake, for a better lack of a better way of saying it, of 3 to 5 years of really solid metrics across every aspect of the business. We had to get that done first before we just throw an AI model at it, because it's kind of garbage in, garbage out. So that was the investment we made last year and into this year. And we hope, one of our goals for 26 is to have a true AI driven, forecasting model to kind of help FP&A the same way that accounting has been helped in some of the reconciliation work that AI has helped us with.
The ERP, the two ERP systems that you mentioned, we would imagine, okay, obviously you want to get it down to one ERP system in the future.
Yeah.
But at the same time, was AI part of the consideration as you go forward? You're looking at both these. Which ones are really adding value with AI? What's a practical approach with AI?
Absolutely. In fact, we've chosen one. I'll maybe not say the name because I'm not trying to do an advertisement for an ERP, but the platform we chose, how integrated AI was it in the platform and opportunities that's going to unlock for us over the next 5-10 years. That was a front and center consideration for us. We have a wonderful CIO who just joined us about the same time I joined, and she and I are very closely partnered on this, and that's a forefront consideration for us in how we chose our ERP.
Could you share with us a little bit about, was finance and that CIO and yourself naturally, but then you had maybe a member or two from your finance team also tasked with trying to evaluate and understand better. Here's why this system might be of value to us more. Are these FP&A professionals? Who are these? Or are they just sort of AI champions on your team? It was
a mix of FP&A and accounting professionals kind of working with our data analytics team and our CIO. It's kind of a partnership of those four folks working together. Honestly, Jack, it took us about a year. We were very thoughtful about this. We really started with the business process redesign first. What did we want for the next 5-10 years? Let's just not go choose the shiniest system or the best, sales pitch we got and okay, we'll just go with it. We really spent about a year going through the evaluation process on the business process redesign first. That was really important for us. And I think that yielded a great outcome. We're really excited. 26 is going to be a year of kind of consolidating onto one ERP system for the company.
Is it fair to say that IT, during your first 12 months, the relationship with IT was one of the ones that was the most dynamic, the one that you really had to come together and focus on, I guess?
Very much so. Very much so. Because of that the issue of having two divisions that are on two separate systems, right? Not only ERP, but the CRM systems, sort of the learning education systems, they were always split. We had two of everything. So imagine that world where you have to start carefully designing a plan over the next 4 to 5 years to kind of bring all those systems together into one for the company. So the CIO, CFO partnership was really critical for us.
During your first year, was there a particular, we call them AI use cases, that you helped approve or green light, or is there where someone came forward and said, this is a great use of AI for whether it satisfies customers, whether it helps our internal operations more efficiently operate? Don't know, but is there an AI use case where you had the fun of green lighting it? I don't know. It's fun.
Well, it wasn't a green light per se, Jack, but I helped Adrian invest more on AI. Like I said, in that lead generation, lead conversion space. That's something we made a very conscious AI investment in 25. And then also just our curriculum development really shifted. We kind of shifted priorities on our spend to make sure that AI was more a part of our curriculum. Like I mentioned, some of those diagnostic tool trainings we do for our healthcare workers, that was a big investment shift that I helped kind of shepherd through for the company.
And you placed that emphasis earlier for us on student and employer outcomes, how important they are for you. Is AI likely to play a role here as far as how finance supports these outcomes?
It could quite, yeah, I think it really could, because one of the things we're focused on as we build these new campuses, build these new programs out, making sure that the programs we're picking, the portfolio mix, is it really meeting student needs? Not only today's student needs, but tomorrow's student needs for the next 3 to 5 years. We're spending a lot of time on that, making sure that we're looking at the margin mix of every single program. Are we doing the right thing for students? AI is going to help us do that better, frankly, as we get into more of a driver-based forecasting model. So I think it will play a big part.
All right. Before we ask you to share a finance strategic moment, I'd like to just understand better this model that you've become very familiar with over the last 12 months. Where do you see the largest opportunity for UTI's model, Universal Technical Institute, forgive me, to evolve? Where are we going to, where's the impact? Where's the change going to be?
Well, so I think the current evolution, what we call this North Star Phase 2 strategy, the evolution for us right now is to continue building out campuses and programs to try to meet this incredible need. We only focus on the programs, Jack, that have that incredible supply-demand imbalance in the country. So we don't focus on things like culinary skills or things that do not have that really incredible supply-demand imbalance in the country. So our evolution now is going to be continuing to build out campuses and programs that meet the most student needs for the most employer outcomes. How that's going to evolve beyond the next 5 years, I'm not sure. We're constantly looking at that. But for now, the need is so great for the skills that we equip students for. We are laser focused on doing more of that, building out more campuses, building out more programs. And that's where, finance, frankly, is spending a lot of time in just the execution of making sure we do that well.
And forgive me, this expression campuses, this is actual brick and mortar. I mean, are you signing leases?
These are long-term leases. We don't physically own most of our real estate. In some cases we do, but long-term leases. We literally will take a warehouse, if you will, completely build it out you walk into one of our campuses, it's actually amazing. You'll see jet engines, hanging from the ceiling. Students are working on those. You'll see huge diesel trucks students are working on, wind turbines. We're teaching people about wind energy or robotics or industrial automation. These are really tech centers. They used to be our 60-year history. We focused more on auto diesel. Today, you walk into one of these campuses, they are tech centers. It's really amazing to see what we do and what we train and equip students for.
All right. Well, thank you for some additional insight there. So we are up to what we like to refer to as our finance strategic moment. Again, this might have happened anytime during the course of your career, but it's a moment of insight that you had because you were a finance executive who could see into the business. Hey, what comes to mind when we ask for a finance strategic moment?
Yeah. So, Jack, I would say the one I would point to was maybe more of a strategic learning moment for me that lasted probably a couple of years. It wasn't just one moment in time, but it was when I supported the data center group at Intel. It was I'll give you the learning first, and then I'll give you the kind of flesh it out, kind of what happened. So the learning for me is how critical it is for CFOs to nurture and protect the core business, but while at the same time really enabling disruptive innovation that'll lead to the growth engines of tomorrow. That's sometimes very hard for CFOs to do. We're so focused on the current, the here and now, and the present, delivering the present, which we have to do, but also allowing for innovative disruption for the growth engines of tomorrow. We have to spend as much time in that area. So it became really clear to us at a point in time in the data center group where obviously we were the market leader in server CPUs. We were the market leader in data center, desktop CPUs. I know you probably know some of this, Jack, from your other guests that have been here. But it became really obvious to us that some of the other components like memory, storage, connectivity, the interconnect, the fabric, those were becoming as important, if not more important than the CPU to our data center customers. And we realized it's one of those things you realize kind of gradually, and then you suddenly realize it. Wow, we have to really think of ourselves more of a data center solutions company solving an end-to-end, problem for a customer, not a data center products group. We can't show up to customers with, this is our bag of parts and look at all these components we can give you. We have to be solving problems for customers end to end and be a solutions provider. So that was kind of one one pivot we had to make, and that had its own kind of work stream, and workflow. The second pivot is that we realized we needed to invest in a much broader portfolio of products that would be market leading in how they work together. Finance was tasked with the how we were going to do this. How in the world do you do this? Number one, without completely blowing up your R&D budget. You couldn't go spend 2x the amount of R&D. What were the metrics we were going to hold ourselves accountable to? What was the investment strategy? How we were going to do this? And, Jack, I'll admit, we first started off, the engineers were super excited about this, obviously, right? We're going to invest in a broader portfolio. This is going to be a really wonderful thing for the company. But we kind of started doing things the way we had always done them, which was we may have had 100 ideas from all these engineering and product teams. We held every project to the exact same standard, right? A committed timeline. They had to commit a revenue, profitability, ROI metrics for every single one of those ideas or projects. And we realized pretty quickly this was not going to work. Some of these were small teams, Jack. These were maybe 4 to 5 person, 10 person project teams. And they were spending as much time reporting out as they were doing their actual innovative work, their R&D work. So we realized this is not going to be, we're not going to make the change fast enough if we do things the way we've always done them. So we had been experimenting with a capital allocation model, or a method, if you will, called Zone to Win by an individual named Jeffrey Moore. And I'm not a big fan of consultants. Let me just say that. We're spending a lot of money on consultants, but we'd kind of been working with this. We actually brought Jeffrey in, and finance said, look, we need to do things very differently. And he had kind of developed this model. It's called a 4-zone model, which you may be familiar with, Jack. You have kind of an incubation innovation zone where you just try a bunch of things. You might have 1 out of 20 ideas that actually ends up working. But the rest will totally fail, and you have to be okay with that. So there's that kind of that innovation zone. Maybe that 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20 shows some promise. That becomes potentially a transformational product that moves to the transformation zone that you then start putting a little bit more money behind. You start holding them a little bit more accountable. You have more ROI metrics to see if this idea really is going to take off and eventually become a performance product. You have the performance zone where most of your revenue and most of your profitability happens in the performance zone. And then the fourth zone is your productivity zone, which is how much infrastructure, like IT and HR and finance, how much you have to spend for the company to keep the company as productive as possible. But you spend a lot of your time in that innovation, transformation and performance. I say all that to say the learning for me, and really the decision we made and the learning, was that every zone, if you will, has to have very different rules. You cannot treat innovation the same way you treat a performance product. You have to, as a CFO, you have to be willing to sort of, let go and let some things completely fail. Put aside enough of your budget to just have an experiment zone where you're developing this innovation culture, incubation culture. And Jack, I was shocked. We had some of our best ideas. We had a game-changing memory product come out of that innovation zone. We had a kind of a one-of-its-kind category interconnect fabric product come out of that innovation zone. And it kind of changed my whole approach to how I think about how much I need to be helping a company develop this innovation culture, this incubation culture, if you will, to find those little ideas that may not have gotten funded or looked at in a traditional model, which could end up fundamentally transforming the company over time. So it was an amazing learning experience. Again, it was a kind of a 2 to 3 year moment, not a one time thing for me, but that was finance was front and center in driving that change. And that was really a critical moment for us that I think back.
Wow, great insight there for us. I'm wondering if you could reflect a little on, we can't help but that's Intel, this giant organization, but these innovation zones are perhaps what is happening today within smaller, mid-sized firms.
Yeah.
Where they want to first develop innovation, but they know that performance is really where it has to land finally. Is it applicable? Just as applicable? Obviously, your guidelines would have to change for each
Yeah, the guidelines change, Jack, and the materiality changes. You have to be careful. You can't do the same thing. Part of why we had an innovation zone and that whole concept at Intel is you didn't want the bureaucracy, if you will. I don't mean to be negative, but it's sort of the general large company kind of bureaucracy. You don't want that squeezing out, pure innovation and pure R&D, trying new things. So, but it can be applicable anywhere. Even at our own company, we have sort of my own company today, we have sort of this innovation culture where we're trying new things, trying new programs, experimenting. I think it's applicable anywhere, even though the materiality will look different and the how you implement it's going to look different. But having part of a CFO's capital allocation strategy be very focused on innovation and making sure you're having enough investment dollars carved off for innovation for the future. I think that's the important thing that every CFO needs to be thinking about.
Yeah, no, and that's great because I think many CFOs are somewhat cautious because they don't want the organization to think, oh, finance has adopted a brand new set of rules. No, we have this innovation realm where we're going to have a few projects that we're going to invest in a little differently, not obey the same rules perhaps or ROI that we demanded prior to this, but that's a select number of projects. That's not finance has changed everything.
That's right, Jack. And I think it helps CFOs, frankly, be better business partners to their CEOs, to their leadership teams, to their boards. A lot of times, some CFOs like to say that they set the strategy. I don't think that's really true. I think in many cases, we enable the strategy to become reality. So having a sort of this mindset and this sort of capital allocation approach, I think is a powerful tool that can help CFOs be better partners.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. We're going to move to our mentoring round. We're going to ask you to look back again. Bruce, we are really interested about that first CFO role you do step into. What a world of change that must have been for you, again, from the large, wide body enterprise to all the responsibilities falling on your shoulders. Granted, you had a lot of responsibility, but not like this. This is different. Leadership responsibility.
Yeah.
Tell us something about it. I mean, there must have been something you wish one of those mentors had told you, perhaps in the past. Something.
Yeah, I think what I wish someone would have told me, maybe even earlier in my CFO, progression or my leadership journey, I wish they would have told me to just embrace the roles and the job assignments that go totally south and go totally sideways and that are 10x harder or just not what you were anticipating at all, just to kind of relax, embrace that chaos and be okay with it, because typically you learn more in those job assignments that don't go the way you think they're going to go. And I'll give you two examples, Jack, if I can quickly. So I had two prior CFO roles before this one. My first CFO assignment was to get the company IPO ready. So it was an amazing business model, amazing company, well capitalized. They were clearly on their path to IPO. I spent 2 years getting the company IPO ready, and about 7 days before we were going to flip our S1 filing public, the IPO market totally froze, like completely shut down. There's probably, we all know it in finance, that period of time, I think it was 2021, if I'm remembering correctly, where there were almost no IPOs in the US at all. So that did not turn out the way I planned, but you look back and I think, well, but that's okay. What an amazing thing to say that you've helped a company get IPO ready. It was an amazing journey, an amazing assignment, and I loved it. It was a great, stepping stone for my next public CFO opportunity with Vacasa. I took that role thinking it was going to be a turnaround, role, they had just put in a new management team. We were going to get the company profitable again. We'd put an amazing team together, amazing amount of professionals. We were North America's largest, property management firm across, the country. And that turned out to be about 6 months into the role. I realized, wow, this business model is not going to really work the way it was designed to work. Property management's a very local business. We have to have local decision making on the ground, sort of the command and control structure where everything's determined at corporate. That just doesn't work. So what I thought was going to be a turnaround was basically, wow, wait a minute. We have to get this company private. We have to get this company to a place where it can get franchised and sold off and have it really thrive. And that's what we did. We saved thousands of jobs and got the company in a stable position, but it was a completely different role than I thought I was signing up for. But again, I learned a lot. It was very rewarding to be able to get the company in a great position. So I wish someone would have told me, just be okay with that. Be okay with the craziness of a job that is completely not what you thought it was going to be, because you learn a lot. You really grow as a leader.
Hey, we always like to ask our guests to reflect a little on the personal side. Bruce, what don't your colleagues know about you yet? You've been there a year. There must be something from your past, an interest that you have, something beyond the professional realm, perhaps.
Oh gosh. Well, I'll give you maybe, I don't know. I'm a professionally trained vocalist, musician. I spent a lot of time. I sang a lot in college. I worked for the U.S. District Court in my college years, and they would literally fly me around. I'd sing the national anthem for people who were taking their naturalization vows to become citizens. I did stuff like that, but that's, I guess, kind of a random fact, just my musical background. People wouldn't maybe necessarily think a music person with a CFO. Those things don't maybe mix too well, but that's maybe a fact about me most people wouldn't know.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. What about a book or a resource? And I say resource, something that's informed your thinking along the way. It doesn't have to be a business book, or maybe something you escape with.
I would actually point back to the Jeffrey Moore, that Zone to Win book. I would challenge people to read it, because again, it really helps you if you want to get better at sort of capital allocation and thinking about a capital allocation strategy that might be a little different from how you've thought about it previously. It's going to kind of challenge your concepts a little bit. I would recommend that. No offense to Jeffrey Moore, it won't be like a thrilling escape book or a thrilling story, but it's really helpful, and it helped me a lot in my career. So I'd recommend that.
Bruce, we're going to finally ask you to look forward for us, and we'd like your priorities for the coming 12 months as a CFO. What would those be?
Well, like I said before, this is a really exciting time for my business, for my industry. We are really stepping in. We play such an important role in this country in, helping provide skilled trades education for people. This company in 60 years, we've never invested this much capital. We'll invest, and we've talked about this publicly. We've talked about our CapEx expenditures over the next 5 years. We'll probably invest well over $500 million in this huge expansion of campuses and programs. So frankly, I'm really focused, Jack, just on execution of that. That's very different for our company. I'm spending a lot of time on holding the right teams accountable for the right things, making sure we have the right metrics in place for this huge capital expenditure over the next 5 years. And then ultimately just ensuring that we're maximizing the shareholder return as we embark on this next phase. So I'm really focused on just execution of that huge CapEx expansion. Frankly, making sure my finance team is also really excited about where we're going, keeping them motivated, engaged, and really influencing and impacting the way that I think they should. And we're building that kind of a team here at Universal Technical Institute. So I'm very excited about it.
Bruce Schuman, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
Thank you, Jack, for having me. Really fun to talk with you.